everyone. Welcome to Double FM Sports. I'm Todd File.
I'm Ethan Fager.
And I'm Jared Misrat.
And once again, because it seems that coronavirus has not let up, we're all coming to you from home. So we apologize for our voices sound a little grainy. That's because Ethan is recording and JR and I are at different places right now. But today, what we're looking at for the lineup is first, we'll give you some more details on NFL free agency because there were a couple big deals that happened since we last taped. And then after that, we'll get down into the meat of the show where we are essentially ranking who we think are the best players at their respective positions in the NFL today.
All right. Well, which deal do we want to start off with?
As far as the one that probably got the most press is probably Todd Gurley going to the Atlanta Falcons. He's going on a 1-year, $6 million deal, which seems really low for Gurley. But, I mean, I feel like the most surprising thing here is that he got cut. Because we're talking about a guy who, was a Pro Bowler, if I'm not mistaken, is a former All-Pro. I have to check my facts on that one. But, I mean, he just kind of fell off the cliff after we found out that he had a nagging knee injury. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in Atlanta.
I think one of the main reasons that Gurley was cut was I think the Rams are in serious trouble in terms of cap space, so they're just trying to free up any space that they can at this point. So don't be surprised if more people get cut in the future as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Rams have that three-headed threat at wide receiver who all, they need money. And Gurley was just, he got the short end of the stick. He was the guy who hasn't been performing as well. I mean, as of last season, obviously 2 seasons ago, I'm pretty sure was his close to MVP season. But, he got the short end of the stick with the arthritis in his knee, and now we got to see what he's going to do with the Falcons.
Well, I think this is a seriously good deal for the Falcons. You're getting a former, I believe, All-Pro running back for, $6 million, and they don't even, since they got rid of Devontae Freeman, they don't have a running back, so Todd Gurley's going to go into that spot. So, I'm expecting maybe a big season out of him this year.
It really depends on the extent of that knee injury.
Yeah.
And, Ethan, to what we were both saying about him being an All-Pro, he was a first-team All-Pro in 2017 and 2018, and second-team All-Pro in 2015. So you're talking about a guy who, as recently as 2 seasons ago, was an All-Pro, and like JR mentioned, a possible MVP candidate. But I think that's what had happened, and I really think it's dependent more on what now is. But also in that, now that Gurley has left, do you see the Rams picking up another running back, or do you think they're going to go with Malcolm Brown?
Where's CJ Anderson in that thing? Is he still there?
Let me look.
He's old, though, so I don't think
Well, yeah, but I'm thinking Malcolm Brown's going to take over as, the starter, and then CJ Anderson might be, change of pace back or something.
Yes. CJ Anderson, from what I see, is a free agent.
Oh, all right then. Never mind. So I'm thinking, well, if they got rid of Gurley to save cap space, they're obviously not really going to re-sign anyone. So I'm expecting Malcolm Brown to be the starter next year.
And potentially, maybe they pick up a rookie in the draft.
Yeah, that rookie contract could really save some cap space there compared to what Gurley was making.
Right.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move on from Gurley?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I'd say that probably the deal that should get the second most hype, I don't know. I'd go with Emmanuel Sanders, who partway through last season went from the Broncos to the Niners, helped take them to the Super Bowl, even though they didn't win it, became a free agent and has now signed a 2-year, $16 million deal with the New Orleans Saints, which to me is a good move on the Saints' part and kind of scares me a little bit because of that revamped wide receiver core. I mean, obviously, you're bringing back Michael Thomas, but for the past couple of years, New Orleans wide receivers has just been Drew Brees throwing the ball to Michael Thomas, and that's about it.
Yeah, so I think adding like an extra threat there, that makes the Saints offense look very scary. And especially with considering and we haven't even mentioned Alvin Kamara in the backfield, and he's still there. So, I mean, that's a scary offense, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do this year.
I mean, I think what we're looking at right now is exactly what the Saints tried to do with Des Bryant a couple years ago when they signed him off the Cowboys. I mean, you're looking at a veteran presence who still is playing at least decent football for a guy of that age. I mean, it just gives Drew Brees another target that's pretty reliable to catch downfield.
Yeah, I think it was a very good move on their part.
Right, and it prevents defenses from being able to just, like, double or triple team Michael Thomas. Because after him, you have... Who's their wide receiver after him? Is Traquan Smith, I think?
Ted Ginn?
And Ted Ginn, who both of those guys have been good, but I don't know. I see them as more of a third wide receiver and not a second. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the veteran presence, and Emmanuel Sanders will definitely be that.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a very good wide receiver, too, for them. So he might... And he'll drive a lot of attention away from Michael Thomas, too. So that makes Michael Thomas even more of a presence now.
Right. So moving on from New Orleans, then the final two deals, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of a split on which one is more important per se. But we'll just go with Melvin Gordon for the time being, who is not with the Los Angeles Chargers anymore. He is now with the Denver Broncos. I don't know the extent of what his deal was.
2 year, I think it's like 2 years, $16 million or something.
Okay, something to that effect. And I mean, I don't know. It's kind of to be expected, given that the Chargers just signed Austin Eckler to a 4-year deal. So it was pretty apparent before the news of Melvin Gordon's signing that he probably wasn't going to be a Charger, or that he wasn't going to have the same role as he has in past years.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, he did hold out at the start of the year last year, correct?
Yes, and it took about half the season.
Yeah, so even still, I would have, even if they didn't have him re-signed Austin Eckler, I would have expected him not to come back. But I was going to say, I don't understand why the Broncos did that, because they already have a couple of solid running backs.
Yeah.
In like Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman. Yeah, and
Devontae Booker.
Yeah, exactly. So they've got like 4 good running backs now, and I don't really know what they're going to do.
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is they are hurting on a little bit of the offensive side of the ball besides the running back position. And I guess their wide receivers are, young and developing, but they could look to trade 1 or 2 of those guys in a package deal to, now they have Melvin Gordon. They got Drew Luck, who seems to be who they're going forward with their quarterback situation. And maybe they could look at packaging them for like, I don't know what position they need, but something to help the offense out even more with a bunch of young guys there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a smart move for them, and I'm guessing that's probably what they're going to do. But then again, we'll see, because we never know. So
at the same time, though, it seems like a bit of a hassle to acquire Melvin Gordon just so you can shop him.
That is true. Well, I don't know if they're going to shop him, though. They might keep him.
Oh, you're saying keep Melvin Gordon and shop one of the other guys?
Yeah, like I would say maybe keep Melvin Gordon and Phillip Lindsay and then shop the other 2.
I don't know about that. I think that they would keep one of the other two and trade Philip Lindsay because with Philip Lindsay's production, he's probably looking at it like whenever his contract comes up, he's probably looking at a big salary boost, and you wouldn't be able to keep Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay with contracts that long.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like, though, then that becomes a question of who's better, Philip Lindsay or Melvin Gordon.
Well, that's something they're going to have to decide for themselves.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if you're going to have to pay one of them, you're going to want to pay the one that's actually doing stuff for your team, and you're going to want to keep that guy.
Which is why maybe they keep all four of them this year just to see which guy works the best with Drew Lock. And then maybe next offseason we see a trade of some sort for one of the guys.
Or maybe by training camp or something like that. Because to me, that looks like more of a training camp battle. There's no reason on earth why you should have a team that has a 4 running back committee full way through the season. Because that limits the production of everyone.
Yeah.
Anything more on Melvin Gordon, or have we pretty much set our pieces?
I think we've set our pieces unless anyone else has anything to add.
Well, I got one thing, and it's not really something that can be controlled, but I do think it is a little weird that he signed with an in-division rival in the Broncos.
Oh.
I mean, if he is there for the rest of the season, he will play the Chargers twice.
Oh, that could be interesting, yeah.
Well, it almost reminds me a little bit of what happened with Brett Favre after, obviously in 2005 they drafted Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers was kind of being groomed to be that successor to Brett Favre, and he kind of got unceremoniously shoved out of the Packers organization. And so after that, he was like, I don't care where I go. I just want it to be somewhere where I play the Packers twice a year. And so then he goes to the Vikings and was able to stick it a little bit to the Packers because of that. So I don't know. Maybe there's a little bit of that. Maybe Melvin Gordon feels like he's been wronged by the Chargers organization. But
yeah, we don't know the motive for... Or that honestly just could have been the only place that actually wanted him. So
right.
we don't know how that all came about.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mentioned that there were 4 deals. We've covered 3. So the last one is that Eric Ebron is no longer with the Indianapolis Colts, but is now a Pittsburgh Steeler, which now gives the Steelers a pretty good tight end core, given that you have Ebron and Vance McDonald together. So that'll be interesting to watch. I wouldn't say it's as much as a dominant tight end core as something like what the Eagles have with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, but it's still pretty close to that.
It's like the budget version of that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think it'll still be. I think they'll be decent. Well, we'll see how Ben plays if he comes back. But
the rumor is that he's better with surgery than he ever was.
I've heard that rumor too, but I don't believe it until I see it. So, if Ben plays well, I think that could be very good for the Steelers having 2 solid tight ends. Because sometimes Vance McDonald is a little on and off in terms of his play, and maybe Eric Ebron can cover those holes for McDonald.
Well, and Eric Ebron, he's one of those guys who he needs to be constantly involved in the game in order to have an impact on the game. I mean, we saw the difference between this past season and the season before in production for Eric Ebron, where the prior season with Andrew Luck, Eric Ebron was insane and had pretty much blown the socks off of everyone who was watching him because they weren't expecting this out of a guy who hadn't done anything in Detroit. But then last year, you don't have Andrew Luck anymore. You've got Jacoby Brissett. and we saw Eric Ebron's production just tank massively. So I think he needs to get into a rhythm with Ben Roethlisberger. And Ben, I mean, it's like what people say about buying an expensive driver golf club. You invested the money, you gotta let the big dog eat. And I mean that's where I'm at with Eric Ebron. You invested the money, let the big dog eat.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what's good, that might be good for the Steelers because that takes a lot of the pressure off of Vance McDonald, which obviously because last year he was like our main tight end, so a lot of the pressure was on him, and he had a decent season. He didn't have the best season, he had a decent one, but taking that pressure off him now with Eric Ebron is, I think, will really help him progress too.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. And, I mean, if Vance McDonald had less to worry about on his end, it would probably help him, like you were saying, help him play better.
Yeah.
All right. Any other things to add?
I think I'm good.
All right.
Yeah, I'm good too.
So that pretty much covers our update on the latest free agency deals that have happened. So now let's get into the meat of this podcast, and let's get into essentially what has become, I don't know, I would call it almost a bit of a fantasy team, but not exactly. Just for the listeners' knowledge, essentially what we did is we took on both the offensive side and defensive side of the ball, we took what would be an 11-man lineup, and we chose who we think is the best player, / which ones we would want on a team together. At least that's more or less what I did, and we were essentially just going to debate the merits of the lineups that we've created. But essentially what we have is we have 2 defensive ends, 2 D tackles, 3 linebackers, 2 safeties, 2 cornerbacks on the defensive side of the ball. Then we have 1 quarterback, 1 running back, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, 4 offensive linemen, whether they're tackles or guards, 1 center, and then on special teams we just have a kicker and a punter.
All right, so where do we want to start here?
I feel like it's probably more logical to start on offense.
Okay.
We want to just go down the lineup.
Yeah, where do we want to start at? O-lineman, quarterback, like where do we want to start here?
Let's just do QB.
Okay. This might be, because honestly, I feel like we all have, there's 2 that we all probably...
Nope.
Oh, do we have other people too?
I mean, unless you're talking about someone that I don't think you're talking about, I think my selection of quarterbacks is going to be a little bit underrated for what you guys are thinking.
All right, well, let's do, Todd, who did you take as your quarterback?
I took Drew Brees. You're talking about a guy who for the past 15 years has been one of the most consistent quarterbacks, and he has not slowed down one bit. I don't care how old he is. I want Drew Brees because he has also proven to be one of the most accurate quarterbacks out there. And when he's healthy, which is most of the time, he is a true presence on the field.
All right, JR, who'd you take?
I went with the Seahawks quarterback, Russell Wilson. I really like what he did last year in Seattle. I mean, the wide receiving core is all right, not the best. Tyler Lockett's out there, and he's doing his thing. But, I mean, Russell Wilson was a top 5 quarterback when it came to rating. He had over 4,000 yards of passing, touchdowns. I mean, look right here. He had 31 touchdowns behind Jameis Winston and Lamar Jackson. I mean, I think he's probably one of the more, I mean, he's obviously good and people know it, but he's one of the more, under the radar quarterbacks, I think, when you're talking about the greats in the game for right now.
Okay, well, I've got a different one than both you guys. I went with Mahomes.
I figured you'd either go with Mahomes or Lamar Jackson.
No, I was debating between
for the Ravens.
I was debating between those two, but then I thought about it, and I would rather Patrick Mahomes on my team because, I mean, Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl, and so far Lamar Jackson has shown that he's not as good in the playoffs as he is in the regular season. And I just think Patrick Mahomes, especially these past 2 years, has been really good and shows really no sign of slowing down, especially with the talent that he has around him. So I would really like him on as my quarterback.
I don't know, though. My thing with Mahomes, because I definitely thought about picking Mahomes, but my thing with him is just, especially after his knee injury last year, I feel like we saw a different kind of Mahomes where he wasn't as good as he had been, especially the year before. And I don't know, it just seemed like he had suddenly slowed down. I was more or less just riding off of his legend than his actual playing ability.
Well, you see, the only reason I took Mahomes over someone like I was actually debating between Mahomes, Jackson, and Wilson, and I cut Jackson out of the way due to the playoff thing. And then I don't know. I just think Patrick Mahomes is slightly better than Russell Wilson. So, I mean, I know he hasn't played as long as Russell Wilson, but as of right now, I think he's playing better. So I would rather have him. But come in the next 5 years, maybe that changes.
Yeah. Okay.
So
moving on.
We all have 3 different quarterbacks, so this is going to shape up to be eventful.
Yeah. Running backs. This one, I don't know. We'll see where this goes because I feel like there could be a really obvious answer here, but I also feel like we could have the same level of diversity that we had with the quarterbacks. So,
all right, Todd, who do you take at running back?
I took Derrick Henry. The man is a man-child who cannot be stopped. I have seen him single-handedly bowl over multiple linebackers and defensive backs, and he's just a wall.
All right, JR.
I like the Derrick Henry pick, but I had to go with a dual-threat running back in Christian McCaffrey, what he can do, not only out the backfield, but lined up as a wide receiver. I think that's very impressive. I mean, he was one of the best receivers of the season, and that's not even his main position.
Right.
Well, I went with Le'Veon Bell.
What? Did you actually?
No, I'm joking. I went along with JR, and I took McCaffrey as well. I just thought he's very valuable, and he was the reason the Panthers were in most of their games last year. So, and based on seeing him play, like you said, he's a dual threat. He can catch and run. I just think I would want him on my team. He's just very good. And I was debating between him and Derrick Henry, and the only reason I said him over Derrick Henry is because of his receiving ability.
Yeah, and I mean, I do like that Christian McCaffrey pick. I definitely thought about him, but at the same time, I don't know, in a lineup like this, yes, a pass-catching back as well as a running back is a good thing to have, but when you have a stacked wide receiver lineup, too, like if this were going to be an actual team, you're not really going to need that pass-catching back as much. And at the same time, we also don't know the extent of Derrick Henry's pass-catching ability because Ryan Tannehill simply does not throw the ball to him. So, I don't know. We've never really seen Derrick Henry in a pass-catching role. So, I don't think we can really, I don't know. I feel like we can't evaluate his ability to catch passes at this extent.
Okay, so a little less diversity in the running back position. A little less.
Yeah.
So I guess we want to move on to wide receivers.
Sure.
So how do we want to do this? Do you just want to say all three, or do we want to go one at a time, or how do we want to do it?
Why don't we do all three?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Todd, you've been starting off, so let's keep it going.
All right. I had DeAndre Hopkins, the man who catches literally everything thrown at him, Michael Thomas, and Tyreek Hill. I feel like that's a really good combination of speed, with some height in there, especially with Michael Thomas, and just great hands from all three of them.
All right, JR, who'd you go with?
I like 2 out of the 3 of those picks, and don't get me wrong, the other one that is there I do like too, but I also went with Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins, and I guess the only reason why I didn't go with Tyreek Hill is just because he was hurt for a decent part of last year. I went with a guy who was part of that 3-headed trio at the Rams that we talked about earlier in the video, Cooper Kupp.
I was going to say, are you going Cooper Kupp?
I mean, he was 12th last year in receiving yards. He had 10 touchdowns. I mean, I think he had a pretty good season last year. Now, he did have some issues when it came to holding onto the ball. He had 3 fumbles, but I think he'd be a pretty good slot wide receiver to be paired up between the two guys, DeAndre Hopkins and Michael Thomas, who go up for jump balls.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I'm surprised there was no Antonio Brown picks on there.
Are you really?
You're lying.
No, I'm joking. I am also on the Michael Thomas, DeAndre Hopkins bandwagon, so we can all agree there. But I actually had a different receiver, and yes, this may be a little biased because I'm an Alabama fan, but I went with Julio Jones.
Okay. There's definitely a case for that.
I just think, I think he's got great catching ability too, just like Michael Thomas, and I think he's pretty fast too, so I think he's an all-around just great wide receiver, so.
Yeah, but he didn't even catch 100 passes this year. I mean,
well, because he's got Matt Ryan throwing to him.
Matt Ryan was a Super Bowl quarterback as of a couple years ago.
As of 2016. It's more than a couple years ago.
And he also blew it. He blew the Super Bowl, too. Well, not him, just him, but.
I mean, Julio Jones didn't even catch 2/3 of the balls that were thrown to him.
I don't know. I just think Julio Jones is an all-around good receiver. And I mean, I think he'd easily destroy Cooper Kupp in.
But that's the thing, is when me and Todd were thinking about this, we both picked guys who were short and speedy who would play the slot really well. And while Julio Jones obviously is pretty fast and he's a wide receiver in the NFL, you got 3 big guys. You don't really have a guy who can burn you, day in and day out.
I don't know. So I guess we want to move on to tight end.
Sure.
Now, I feel like tight end, I don't know how heavily debated this is going to be. I feel like it's going to be less debated than the other ones.
I'm not sure. I can see maybe 3 options.
Yeah.
All right, well, Todd, who did you pick?
I went with Travis Kelce. Simply because he has that ability to be... I mean, he's just a really big presence on the field when you talk about just a body size. But he can also, he's mastered the catch and run, and I've seen him multiple times. I mean, especially in the Super Bowl, you just see Patrick Mahomes over the middle complete a 10-yard pass that Travis Kelce turns into a 20-yard gain. So, I mean, he's definitely got wheels despite his size, and I think that's kind of valuable when you're talking about the efficacy of a tight end.
All right, JR.
That is also who I went with. I mean, Travis Kelce was top 10 in both receptions and receiving yards. And that's not just for tight ends, that's for wide receivers and running backs too. And he's a pretty decent blocker. I mean, he can pretty much do all you'd want out of a tight end and more.
Okay. Now, I almost took Travis Kelce. Almost.
But you didn't.
I took George Kittle.
Fair enough.
I thought you might.
I don't know. I just feel like, and once again, it was this was probably one of my most, like, debated ones in my head, Travis Kelce versus George Kittle. I just went with George Kittle just because, I don't know, I just feel like he was able to make more plays in the situation that he was in. But I could also have been swayed to Travis. I can be swayed to Travis Kelce, too.
Well, I feel like with Kittle, he also, there's not as much competition for the ball around him because, I mean, you talk about wide receiver depth on the 49ers. You have, or even just receiver in general. You have Kittle as the tight end. You had Emmanuel Sanders for the back half of the year. You had the rookie Deebo Samuel. And then you had guys like Dante Pettis and Marquise Goodwin, who, I don't know, that's not a very strong wide receiver core. And so as soon as you throw someone like Kittle in there, he's just going to take a ton of passes from those guys because, frankly, they're not getting the passes to begin with.
Well, that was my thing because even though, since the San Francisco wide receiving core is not as good, I was thinking like they might turn their attention more to George Kittle, and the fact that he's still able to make as many plays as he did with more attention on him, I just thought that was the thing that drove me above Travis Kelce.
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of interesting. No one mentioned Zach Ertz at all.
That was my third.
Yeah, that was my third one too. Yeah.
I almost put Austin Hooper on here. And here's why. Because, I mean, Austin Hooper, you look at what he did last year, and until he got injured, at least from a fantasy perspective, which oftentimes can be, it's an interesting gauge of a player's ability because it can be biased, but at the same time, it can be very telling. He was the number one tight end in fantasy for quite a few weeks. And I know that because I had him on my team. But I don't know. Just we're talking about a tight end who's scoring at least once almost every game. And I don't know. He's in an offense where you have people like Julio, Calvin Ridley. For part of it, you have Mohamed Sanu. So you have guys who are going to get legitimate looks from Matt Ryan, and still through that, Austin Hooper is still scoring and making an effect on the game.
Okay, I could see Austin Hooper making a case. I think Travis Kelce, George Kittle, and Zach Ertz are all slightly better than him.
Yeah.
So, all right, the O-lineman. Do we want to do center or O-lineman first?
We could probably just put them all together and say which one's the center.
All right, well, let's switch it up. I'm going to start us off here.
Oh.
All right, so my four O-linemen were Jason Peters, David DeCastro, Zach Martin, and Tyron Smith, and my center was Jason Kelce.
Yeah. I like some of those.
You missed out two pretty big names.
At what positions?
I definitely agree with Jason Kelce at center. I mean, that's who I had. Yeah, I liked Zach Martin. I'm not surprised you took David DeCastro, partially because of the Steelers connection, but also because he is an actually good lineman. I mean, multiple Pro Bowls and that kind of thing. I almost took him, but instead I took David Bakhtiari of the Packers. I took Zach Martin, Marshall Yanda of the Ravens, and Quentin Nelson of the Colts.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, yeah. See, I was very happy with the David DeCastro, Kelce, Zach Martin thing. Now, the Tyron Smith and Jason Peters, I personally like Tyron Smith, but the Jason Peters one, I was debating between him and Quentin Nelson, actually.
I think that it's not that hard of a debate, though. I think Quentin Nelson's not only the best offensive guard in the league, but I think he's probably the best offensive lineman there is, especially for his age. I mean, he's only been in the league for a couple of years, I think 2 or 3. I mean, in my opinion, he's the best guy in the whole entire NFL when you're talking about linemen.
All right. Well, I actually totally forgot about Marshall Yanda purely because he retired recently.
Yeah.
I would have had Yanda on there. I just forgot that he was on. That was the thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I mean, so on the offensive side, looking back, we had what?
I didn't even get to go.
I was going to say, Ethan, you just skipped over JR.
Oh, well, because he talked about Quentin Nelson and Yanda, and I thought he had all the other three the same.
About Marshall Yanda. I had Quentin. I picked 2 guards, 2 tackles, and a center, just because.
So did I. I feel that.
So I picked Quentin Nelson at guard, and I don't know. I picked Brandon Brooks of the Eagles. Not a big Eagles fan, but he was the first guy that popped in my head when I thought of guards. Now, obviously, there might be better guards, but I couldn't think of any. I had Travis Frederick of the Cowboys at center.
Okay.
I feel like is justifiable. I mean, obviously, there's Jason Peters and a few other centers, but
Jason Kelsey.
You mean Jason Kelsey, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I meant. I had Tyron Smith at tackle, and I know this one hasn't been mentioned, but at the Ravens, I had Ronnie Stanley. I think he played pretty good at tackle for the whole entire season. I mean, protecting Lamar Jackson as his escape artist is pretty hard to do because you got a lot of different angles you're going to have to block at. I think he had a pretty good season, though.
Wow, so no Zach Martin on your team.
No.
Wow, okay.
I don't know. Both of you guys mentioned Tyron Smith, and my thing with him is, I don't know, last year he was injured. I think it was last year. He was injured a good bit, and he didn't seem to recover the best from that injury, so he was more or less, at least from what I've seen, kind of off and on.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I like Tyron Smith in all honesty. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, now looking back at the offense, we had some disagreements, some the same, some tough decisions. I mean, I was expecting this purely because we don't seem to agree on anything, us three. So.
I mean, they were like decent. Like I feel like there wasn't really a pick on the offensive side of the ball that was really shocking for any of us. I mean, we all picked guys that we thought were contenders.
Yeah.
I don't know, we almost got there when Ethan said Le'Veon Bell, so.
Well, yeah, that's true.
No, I mean, as a Steelers fan, I honestly am not the biggest fan of Le'Veon Bell, so I would have never have had him on my team. So. I didn't even think he had that good of a season, honestly, last year, so.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. And then obviously Antonio Brown, one of the best receivers out there right now. I'm joking. He's one of the best receivers at getting in trouble.
Yeah, one of the best receivers of punishment.
Yeah, there you go.
Him and Josh Gordon.
Well, did you hear that they're not gonna get players in trouble if they test positive for having marijuana in their system now?
I think Josh Gordon was a little bit more than marijuana, though.
Well, yeah, but...
Yeah.
But...
His latest suspension was because of PEDs, so...
Yeah. Alright, well, I think it's time to move on to the defense.
Sure.
Where do we want to start?
You want to start on the D-line?
Okay, so we've got 2 defensive ends and 2 defensive tackles.
Right.
All right, well, for defensive ends, I'm going to go with... I went with Cam Hayward and Aaron Donald.
Isn't Aaron Donald a D tackle?
Yeah.
I saw something that said he's a defensive end. I thought he was a D tackle too.
I'm pretty sure he's a D tackle because when I was looking at the Pro Bowl roster, he was listed under D tackle. So
I saw someone said he was a defensive end for some reason, so I was like, "Oh, sweet, he's a defensive end." But I guess not. Maybe not. I don't know.
Well,
I mean, you could probably switch him around.
with that being said, do we just want to go through our whole defensive end, or the whole defensive
Okay.
line? 'Cause I feel like some guys could have been moved around. In
Okay.
fact, I think all 4 of my guys technically played defensive end at one point.
Okay, I'll go through my 4. So I had Aaron Donald, Cam Hayward, Fletcher Cox, and Chris Jones.
Okay, that's interesting, actually.
I'm guessing the Fletcher Cox pick's the interesting one.
No, actually, I really like Fletcher Cox.
Oh, okay.
He's the guy that I had at D tackle. I had him and Aaron Donald. And I don't know. I was actually, so when you said Chris Jones, it wasn't registering in my mind who Chris Jones was, and then I remembered. Oh wait, no, that is Chris Jones, and that doesn't surprise me anymore because he's a defensive beast.
Yeah.
So my D ends that I had were Nick Bosa and Cam Jordan.
Oh, yeah. I can completely see those two making it as well.
Yeah.
Well, JR, who did you have?
Alright, so I gotta be honest, I picked a guy in one of my defensive line spots that you guys definitely would not have even thought of, possibly never even heard of, because, I mean, he is a rookie, and he does not play on the best of teams, but I think for what he did as a rookie, it was pretty impressive. So I went with, my first 3 were Aaron Donald, Cam Hayward, and Cam Jordan. I think those are pretty just fabulous, selections for the defensive line. And my guy that I went with, from the Oakland Raiders, I went with the rookie Max Crosby.
Oh, Max Crosby!
I was going to say, did you go with Max Crosby?
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, I heard a lot about him last year being a beat. Yeah, I could totally see that.
10 sacks, 19 TFLs. He had 4 pass deflections, no interceptions, but, that's expected out of D-line. And 4 forced fumbles. I mean, it's not the best season, but especially for a 22-year-old, I mean, I think he's got a lot of potential to, blossom into some kind of corner piece of a defensive end.
Well, and for a rookie on the Oakland Raiders, well, now the Las Vegas Raiders, that's pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah.
I was impressed by him last year.
You're talking about a guy who, if I'm not mistaken, was drafted in the 4th round.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I think, yeah.
Not a very high pick.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
All right. So,
linebacker time.
yes. And we didn't separate it, just for clarification, we didn't separate it into outside or inside or middle. We just 3 linebackers in the league because generally, especially on defense, players can be pretty flexible between which position they actually play.
Yeah. So I went with Bobby Wagner, Khalil Mack, and TJ Watt.
I had one of those.
2.
What? One?
Yeah, I had TJ Watt.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not a... Bobby Wagner, yeah, he had a Pro Bowl season, but at the same time, I feel like there are guys that are better because I had Darius Leonard and Shaq Barrett. Because, I mean, Darius Leonard didn't have his best season last year, at least from what I saw. But at the same time, he's still a beast who will just, as soon as you get beyond the D-line, he is there waiting for you, and he will blow you up. And I mean, Shaq Barrett.
I understand Shaq Barrett, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, JR, who'd you go with?
Well, both of you had 2 of my guys in different, orders. I had Jack Barrett, TJ Watt, and Bobby Wagner. Now, I gotta be honest, I don't know if I would have put him over one of my, linebackers, but I completely forgot about Khalil Mack for whenever I was doing this. Now, granted, it was 11 o'clock at night, so I feel like there was a little bit of there is a little bit of, slack. You got to cut me. But, I mean, I picked two guys who I think can rush the ball pretty well and cover pretty decently and TJ Watt, and then Bobby Wagner man in the middle. I think he's been a pretty consistent linebacker his whole entire career, and he led the NFL in tackles last
That's why I put Bobby Wagner.
Yeah, my thing with Khalil Mack was that, I don't know, I feel like we didn't see the same Khalil Mack this past year that we saw the year before. And I mean, the same thing can kind of be said with Aaron Donald. I feel like both of them, their efficacy just kind of dropped off. And I mean, we're talking about guys who the year before were Defensive Player of the Year candidates, and this year weren't even in the conversation.
Yeah, I still think they're very. I had both of them. I just think they're both very valuable. So, I mean, I honestly I was debating between Shaq Barrett and Khalil Mack. Those are the two I was debating the most there. So, I could have seen Shaq Barrett easily gotten into my lineup.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do the secondary, and now for the secondary, we did 2 cornerbacks and 2 safeties.
Yep.
Okay, so let's start off with cornerbacks. So, my 2 cornerbacks were Stephon Gilmore and Tre'Davious White.
Yeah. That's definitely, there's a legitimate argument for that. I mean, I also had Stephon Gilmore. Tre'Davious White is a heck of a corner. And if the Bills hadn't let Stephon Gilmore walk in 2017, we could have seen Stephon Gilmore and Tre'Davious White on the same team, which would be kind of scary. But I had Richard Sherman. And I mean, you can say what you want about his age, but he is still one of the best corners in the league and is still a certifiable lockdown corner. Not necessarily because of his speed, but because he's been in the league long enough to know how people do things, and he's kept up well with a changing league and younger players.
I'm going to be honest, Todd, I had Richard Sherman at first, and then I forgot Tre'Davious White existed, and then I crossed out Richard Sherman and put in Tre'Davious White.
Yeah.
Now, JR, you didn't sound too thrilled with those picks, so I'm interested to see who you went with.
I mean, obviously, Stephon Gilmore, I'm pretty sure he had one of the best cornerback seasons we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
So I went with him. Now, this is another one of mine where it's a little bit questionable, but I feel like with reasoning I can justify at least putting him on my team. It's Logan Ryan of the Titans. I mean, he had 8 total turnovers, 4 interceptions, and 4 forced fumbles, more than Stephon Gilmore, the same amount as Tre'Davious White. So I'm pretty sure it's the most of all cornerbacks in the NFL, and he had over 100 tackles on the season.
Okay, that's fair. That's completely fair.
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't remember that he played cornerback. I thought he was a linebacker, or a safety. But yeah, I mean, definitely in the playoffs he turned up a little bit, and it was even better than he was in the regular season. But yeah, I mean, there's a legitimate argument for that.
Yeah, I totally see it. All right, now to safeties. I went with 2 guys that no one really might have not went with. They're questionable. Okay. So I went with Minkah Fitzpatrick and Kevin Byard.
I'm cool with that.
Wow, no complaint. I'm actually surprised. No complaints about that.
Hold up. I literally forgot Kevin Byard was still in the league. I kind of thought he retired for some reason, but I think I'm getting him confused with Brian Arakpo, because they were on the same team. But I definitely agree with Minkah Fitzpatrick. I don't know. I put Harrison Smith over Kevin Byard.
Yeah, I was thinking about Harrison Smith, and I was thinking I thought you were going to go with that as a Vikings fan, but
Well, not just as a Vikings fan, but I just think he's put together a much better season than Byard has, but that's just me.
All right. Well, JR, who'd you go with?
I also picked Kevin Byard. I feel like that was a kind of easy pick for me. I went with Jamal Adams as my other
Okay,
safety.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I can totally understand that.
Now, this one's a little bit questionable. I do like the Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think this is a little more questionable than Minkah Fitzpatrick, but for a few minutes when I was picking my, selection, I did look at Buda Baker, who had a few forced fumbles and was, the top safety for when it came to tackles. Now, granted, that is mostly because, the Cardinals' defense does kind of miss a bunch of tackles, but I mean, Buda Baker as a safety was fourth in tackles.
Yeah.
For the whole time.
I mean, I think he's like the next big thing in terms of safety. So I can, that's totally justifiable in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we've gotten the offense, we've gotten the defense, we've had some discrepancies, but not as many as I thought we would.
Right.
Now we're moving on to the special teams, or should I just say kickers and punters?
That's pretty much all it is. Yeah.
All right. So for kicker, I had Harrison Butker.
No, I'm sorry. I feel like my pick is, not only the greatest kicker playing right now, but the greatest kicker possibly of all time. And
Justin Tucker?
I was gonna say this. Yes, Justin Tucker.
Okay. I was about to say Adam Vinatieri for a second, but I was like, he sucked this year.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Kicker ever.
What?
Go ahead. No, never mind. No, I agree with Justin Tucker. Yes, he was my guy, but at the same time, you can't say that Justin Tucker is possibly the greatest of all time. It's Adam Vinatieri, and that is a fact.
Oh boy, here we go.
Just wait, hold on. Before I get into this session with the Todd, Ethan, what do you mean that Justin Tucker sucked? He was 28 for 29 on the season.
No, I'm talking about, I thought Harrison Butker, well, I don't know. I looked at the stats, and I liked Harrison Butker, so. I mean, I totally understand Justin Tucker. Don't get me wrong. But going back to the greatest of all time, I mean, I think Adam Vinatieri is still the greatest of all time, even though he had a pretty bad season this year. But that might be a debate for another time, or we can debate it right now if we want to.
Well, I just want to make my argument that I don't understand how, when the only thing that you're measuring by in kicking is accuracy, that the most accurate kicker of all time is not the greatest.
I don't know. I just feel like Adam Vinatieri has been doing what he's been doing so much longer than Justin Tucker has. I mean, sure, Justin Tucker has been good, and if he continues to do what he does for as long as Adam Vinatieri has been doing it, then sure, Justin Tucker has a legitimate case for being the greatest of all time.
I guess fair enough.
Yeah, I think if Justin Tucker keeps this up for another 5-10 years, then yes, I think he's the greatest of all time. But can he keep it up for the next 5-10 years? That's the question in my head still regarding the greatest kicker of all time.
Right.
All right, well, we've got one more position to cover, and that is punter. Punters are people too, guys. Come on now.
I know.
My punter was Matt Bosher of the Atlanta Falcons.
I'm not going to lie, I have no clue who that is.
Okay, well, all right, who did you guys go with?
I went with Tress Way of the Washington Redskins. I mean, he was a Pro Bowler this year, and, I mean, with a name like Tress, I mean, you got to respect that guy. I mean, that's such a great name.
All right, JR, who'd you go with?
I'm going to be 100% honest. I picked a kicker and completely forgot about punter.
Oh.
You guys said this before the video. So So I literally just put the first punter that came to my head, and that was Johnny Hecker.
Alright.
I thought about, he crossed my mind.
Yeah, same.
Simply because he's the guy who, I don't know if you've seen the video, it was like a couple years ago, I think.
Oh, with the Seahawks?
Playing the Seahawks.
Yeah.
He just, decks this, I want to say, was it?
I've never
What?
I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, I've seen that video. It was on Come On Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun. Yeah, that's the only reason he ever crosses my mind. And also, he's been on Dude Perfect before, too.
And in the Super Bowl last year, when the Rams were in the Super Bowl, I think he now holds the record for longest run in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's right. He does. Yeah. Because, that game, there was no offense at all, so there's a lot of punting going on, so...
Until Sony Michel scored with 4 minutes left in the game, yeah.
So, yeah, all right. Well, that is our list. Actually, not as many disagreements as I thought we would have, especially on. There definitely disagreements, but I thought we were going to disagree with everything because we normally do.
Yeah,
I mean we kind of did, but
no, for example, the defensive linemen, we all had 2 or 3 out of the 4 similar. So, I mean, that was better than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, is there anything else we want to talk about before we wrap up here, guys?
I got one thing that, kind of goes back to this. I know I mentioned Logan Ryan as one of my best cornerbacks in the league. I just want to point this out just for, just to point it out. Tom Brady's last pass in a Patriots uniform was a pick six by Logan Ryan in the playoffs.
Yes.
That's true, yeah. All right, well, yeah, that's something to keep in mind, I guess. Well, going back to that, I don't know if he should have pick sixed it.
Strategy-wise, he probably shouldn't have, but...
That's what I'm saying. Well...
Yeah.
So, I guess... we're gonna be doing more of these things. We might dive into, the top NFL players by each position of all time, or, top NBA players of all time or something, purely because we don't really have enough news to talk about with this whole coronavirus thing going on, so expect more of these kind of videos where we kind of just debate each other on this stuff. We might debate college basketball as well, college football, NHL, we'll see.
And also, if something does happen that's newsworthy, we'll of course do what we did on this episode and just give you a quick update on that at the beginning of the episode and then get cooking. JR, did you want to give a little bit of an update on what will be coming out soon on our channel?
Yeah, sure. So, basically, was it after the podcast we did that we just released, the most recent one?
Yes, we just dropped our 5th episode.
Yeah, so after that podcast, me being the businessman that I am, I reached out to a certain basketball player. I will not say his name.
We're not giving the name, okay.
Build up the suspense, but we are planning on within the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're leaning towards 2, just get it over with. We are looking to talk with a former Division I basketball player, and I think that you guys will really enjoy hearing an interview with, one of the top basketball players in the country. Now, when I say top basketball players, I mean Division I, not top 5 in the country.
I was gonna say that might be a little bit of a stretch, but
yeah, and also, we do have another video possibly coming out soon.
By the time that they hear this podcast, that video might already be out.
Okay, well, your video.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
because I've seen the video that we're gonna release soon of JR, and I won't say what it's about, but it should be pretty enjoyable for you guys. So I'm excited for you guys to see that.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. That should be out soon, like we said. Other than that, I think that pretty much covers everything that we have to.
I did just want to say we might actually post a little bit more than we might post more than once a week if we keep, since we have a lot of time on our hands, we might be doing a lot more podcasts. So
right,
be prepared for that just in case it happens.
Yep. So I guess until next time, I'm Todd File.
I'm Ethan Fager.
And I'm Jared Mizrak.
And we will see you guys next time.
Yep. Have an awesome rest of the week or weekend or whatever.